Okay, let's talk about scientism. Why am I talking about this? Well, remember, God is dead. Nietzsche declared as much, and then Darwin kind of also confirmed it. And before that, Rousseau was already moving, the thought process in that direction. So, one of the things that has emerged as a potential contender for the vacuum that God or transcendence has held is this idea of scientism. Now, and again, give me a chance to explain this, and you might see this as a potential viable candidate. And why talk about this? Because this viewpoint, remember, what we're doing is looking at, well, if we move our mindset away from transcendence of some sort, an ancient religion, whatever it may be, to something new. Well, what is this something new, and how does that influence how we think about the world and ourselves and those around us? And then, therefore, that will affect our wellness. Okay. And how we perceive stresses, how we think about one another, so on. Okay, so according to Webster's dictionary, this is what science is, not scientism. Okay, it's the intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment. It's a branch of knowledge or a discipline, so like kind of how we use it, the sciences, the physical sciences, the life sciences, etc. A systematically organized body of knowledge in a particular subject, like science of criminology. I kind of alluded to that already. So, but I wanted to point you to this definition. I think it's really, I like this definition a lot. The intellectual and practical activity encompasses systematic study of the structure and behavior of physical and natural world through observation and experiment. Notice that this is, as Webster's describing it here, this is an activity, right? This is engaging with trying to figure out like a kind of a generic definition of science is how trying to figure out how the world works, but it's more than that. It's an activity. It's an intellectual thing. So let me give you an example. If you read a research article, and I know you have, and you will read more of them, is if there's statistical significance, okay, that's not where the story ends when it comes to a research study. You have to dive deeper. You have to engage with the data, look who the participants were, look at the methodology, look at what the standard deviation was, look at effect size. Like they can't just be a simple passing of, okay, there's statistical significance, yes or no. Okay, now I like stats, by the way. I mean, you have to start there, but there's more to it than that. So this is an intellectual and practical activity. Okay, and yes, you're going to employ stats. Yes, you're going to employ these different methods. But I'm trying to hit on is I think what we know as science today isn't the same way it was pre-modernity. In fact, maybe you heard me say the term natural philosopher. That's what a scientist was. That word scientist is actually pretty new. It's a new term. Natural philosophers is what like Sir Isaac Newton would have been called. Galileo would have been called, right? That's more of a description of how science was originally. It's this kind of bigger view. Think of more, maybe a little bit more holistic. Now, that doesn't mean that there wasn't expertise associated, obviously, but it was more of a holistic view. Now, what the heck is scientism then? What is this leading to? Well, let's look at the definition for scientism, okay, and what the boundaries then. So we took something like science, which is a wonderful exploration of the world around us, so we can understand it better ourselves and those around us. All those are positive things, just to understand how things work. Okay, people are naturally curious. Well, most people are. Okay, only science and the scientific method. This is scientism. Only science and the scientific method can answer questions related to our world. So you can see this playing off of science. If science cannot answer these questions, it must not be an important question worth answering. So again, this is where you're thinking downstream. So we talked about Darwinism and social Darwinism. So this is now you have science. And now we're getting to scientism, where it says only science. Now we've elevated science into the only way of knowing things. Well, if you think about it, before, the transcendent was really the center of everything. And yes, we could use science to understand the transcendent, but now we're saying there is no transcendent. So really what is important is science. Like the actual understanding of the world around us is the most important thing, not the transcendent. Okay, and you see this in the writings of some of the old natural philosophers, that they were deists or theists, both, but they were always on a pursuit to understand what the transcendent had done. Okay, so this is, again, a new way of thinking in modernity to say, okay, we remove God, now what? Okay, well, now what is? Science is what we're really after. Science is what's most important, not a transcendent. So hope you can see that connection there. The second part is really important, and the article that you'll read about scientism is from the peer-reviewed journal. So you see scientists wrestling with this problem to say if science cannot answer the question, it must not be an important question to answer. Okay, so you're very much restricted in scientism to say it's a materialistic view. If I can touch it, feel it, analyze it, then it has no value. Well, that's very difficult. I'll go back to nursing practice again. I mean, how do you measure the care? What is the word care? Like, how do you measure that, that a nurse would extend to a patient? And that was a significant reason that person got well. It wasn't all the pharmacology alone. It wasn't, great modern medicine, which a lot of it is pharmacology, right? It was the actual care and the human interaction. And we'll see this later with, mealtime, right? It's the interaction maybe that has the power and not necessarily the food as much as we think in promoting better health. So this is where it gets a little sticky when it comes to scientism, and we get locked into this thinking. But you see some of this thinking dominate in the sciences. If I can't touch it, feel it, analyze it, measure it, quantify it, and this is where you get debates between, you'll see the quantified and the qualified researcher. It becomes a little sticky situation. Okay, so the reason I'm presenting scientism again is draw it back to what this class is all about, is wellness. Is okay, we've changed the lens in which we view things, and scientism, part of scientism is a reductionistic view of the world primarily, because I have to study it in order to really appreciate it. And I'm selecting questions now that if they can't be answered, they're not worth answering or not worth asking. That really narrows things down tightly and starts to eliminate all the interactions that occur. Okay, I'll give you an example from like before I look at the slide here. In the nutrition world, right? Supplements are a big thing, and you see supplement companies that will make these supplements, and they isolate something, right? Whatever it is. Let's say they isolate L-arginine or something for the promotion of nitric oxide, okay? And so they put this in there, but it doesn't work. Like, it doesn't work as well as they thought. It's because of the interactions. Once in real food, the speed of absorption, all these things are important when it comes to, right, understanding how nitric oxide is made. That's a vasodilator, okay? And so you can see this kind of thinking now, all right? That can be limiting, and that's just it's in the quantifiable. That's not even in the qualifiable. Qualified research. Again, you think about qualitative research, right? You're asking questions of people, you're trying to get their insights, trying to get their feelings, etc. Okay. All right. So I want to just throw this slide out quickly to finish this. I don't want this to be a real long lecture. Is again, scientists were considered. They're not anymore, natural philosophers. Number two, the majority of scientists of antiquity were deists or theists. I mentioned this before. And so there was no tension between religion and science. This is a new thing in modernity, that science and religion don't mix. This is new. This is only really around the era of Darwin. Darwin that era started it. In fact, there's a book here I highlighted by John William Draper. Maybe you've heard that those in antiquity and in medieval times believed that the earth was flat. Like the majority of people believe that. Well, what I have a picture is Galileo. I kind of silly put these Roman coins though, but he's looking at his telescope, and these Roman coins have spheres on them. Like, this signifies the earth. Like, the Romans believed the earth was a sphere. A circle. It wasn't a circle. It was a sphere. Okay, it wasn't flat. So this book by Draper kind of set up this, those in antiquity and those in the medieval times. This, we'll get into this chronological snobbery later. They didn't know. Well, this book was really poorly written and researched and cited, but this is the common thinking of today. I mean, if you ask me, as an undergrad, did those people in the medieval times believe the earth was flat? And in antiquity, for sure, I said, oh yeah, of course. And that's not true, right? That's why I run here. Know your primary sources, touted in science. So I've seen this played over in my own field many times. Is where did we get this information from? It's okay to ask that question. What are the primary sources? Okay. So again, there's no conflict. It's not like science is enlightened and religion is not, but that's the way it's framed now. Science is enlightened, religion is archaic. Okay, this is a new way of thinking. Okay, that's what I'm trying to put out to you in this section. Is modernity has, during this time of modernity, we have had a significant shift in thinking. Now, you could argue that's a good thing, but again, regardless if we think it's good or bad, it's happened. Okay, I put some other famous scientists up here as well. You see Da Vinci there, and Al-Khwarizmi, famous mathematician in the Muslim world, right? Again, this is the fact that these significant and important and brilliant scientists, what we call scientists now, natural philosophers, they all believe in a transcendent. Now, I'm not saying that should happen today. Again, the point of this class is not to try to convince you of something. whether it's, being a theist, deist, or following Darwinian evolution. What it is about, though, is understanding that there's been a mindset shift. I'm going to keep saying this over and over again because this is what you're wrestling with as you look at the downstream effects into wellness. And the last question I have here is just, is Darwinism scientism? Is it a form of scientism to say this is the only way we can study the world? That's for you to think about in your writing and your reflection. So I'll leave it there. See you in the next video.